Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the last edition of this Lunch and Learn series with Osome. And Girl today is going to present with us online marketplace pros, cons, and key considerations. This has been a really good series, and hopefully we can do some more in the very near future. So, Girl, it's all over to you.
Thank you, Michael. Thanks, everyone, for joining. It's been a pleasure working with the London Borough of Hammersmith and Fulham, and we hope the events that we run have added some value, provided some insights which have been useful, and then we'll carry on with the next topic, which is centered around e-commerce. So today we want to focus on online marketplaces, pros, cons, and key considerations, plus live Q&A thereafter. And then as for the agenda, we will be covering initially what we do, what Osome does, and then thereafter moving on to online marketplaces, pros, cons, and so on, social selling, moving on to e-commerce and social media, a quick guide to B2B e-commerce, and then happy to take any questions thereafter. So Osome is essentially a bookkeeping and accounting service provider, and our focus has been to center our services around e-commerce accounting, especially the area which has been growing exponentially over the last perhaps now 7 odd years, but more so over COVID, where a lot of businesses have had to transition online. So we focused on really trying to understand that use case, really trying to create technology, create services which are tailored towards e-commerce businesses to better manage the bookkeeping, accounting. And that is kind of a big passion of ours, especially the e-commerce segment, hence why we are quite adaptive to a lot of the content that we produce in regards to e-commerce. So starting off with the online marketplaces. So naturally, an online marketplace is where there's a platform where you're utilizing third parties to sell your products online. And some of the key ones being Amazon, the usual suspects, so Amazon and eBay. Then you've got Etsy, Folksy, which focuses on handmade products, and then not on the high street. So these are some of the most prevalent ones in the UK. And as for Amazon and eBay, they account for 40% of all UK e-commerce platforms and trading online, and thereafter a huge opportunity and audience potentially for UK sellers looking to trade on these platforms. So let's start with Amazon. So Amazon is obtaining on average around 23% of the marketplace in regards to e-commerce platforms online. So it accounts for a huge audience. They say 1 in 3 people in the UK have an Amazon account. And then in regards to the annual sales of Amazon, they're heading up to 17.5 billion plus in the UK. So presents a huge revenue opportunity for third parties, for different sellers, small businesses, even larger businesses to trade online. Amazon has a very successful and very highly reputable fulfillment program whereby businesses will be selling their goods to the Amazon platform, the marketplace, and the warehouse, and then Amazon will more or less be managing your fulfillment for you. So on my side, I predominantly am a big fan of Amazon personally, because I used to, before I started working for Osome, also used to sell on the Amazon marketplace for multiple years. So it can be a very interesting and very good channel for new sales and new business. And in regards to selling online, it is a little bit more complex than some of the other platforms because you have to go through a vetting process, but it's nothing too difficult. And thereafter, setting up online is pretty simple, and they charge you 75p per item. But then thereafter, once you are using their fulfillment services, they can charge anything between 10 to 25% of your RRP after you've made a sale. But thereafter, they manage your customer service, they'll manage the fulfillment. So a lot of that tedious work is taken out of business owners' hands. And then different plans are provided by the Amazon platform, starting at the professional plan, which is around £25 per month, which can also grow thereafter based on which plans you're looking to take on. And then moving forward to eBay. So eBay is a little bit easier to get into in regards to setting up online. It's a lot easier to make your accounts over there in regards to setting up as an individual. It's much easier to set up on eBay than it's on Amazon. And then thereafter, on the other key difference being on eBay, you can sell a lot of used goods, create bids, auctions, so a bit more flexibility to try and do lots of different types of things. And then thereafter, in terms of growing your brand on Amazon and in eBay, you can grow your brand quite extensively, but it's a little bit easier to do so on eBay. And then in terms of selling on eBay, it's a lot cheaper than on Amazon, but they do not provide a fulfillment service as of yet. So you'll have to more or less fulfill the orders yourself, whereby making sure the posting, the SLAs, service level agreements that you've agreed per item are in line with what customers expect. So there is an expectancy of the sellers doing a lot more of the heavy lifting and work in regards to customer service, in regards to fulfillment, managing deliveries, as opposed to Amazon. But then again, it's a huge audience opportunity on eBay as well. So again, an area where there is continuous growth and the marketplace is always expanding. And as mentioned before, Amazon and eBay are some of the largest platforms in the UK and still can carry on to being some of the larger ones. And then in regards to pros and cons, so some of the obvious platforms, some of the obvious pros, are in regards to reduced marketing costs, because you already have huge audiences going to these platforms. There's a lot of trust already built by these brands over the last decade plus. So anyone kind of listing under that brand is able to win a lot of that traffic that they're already going to be obtaining by being on the platform. So essentially, instead of having, let's say, a photo frame that you're looking to sell and you're selling it on your website, you're much more likely and got higher chances, perhaps, when you're very new, to be found on Amazon or eBay, for example, or the marketplaces, based on how you stack up against the competitors. And then also in regards to the buyer intent, it's a lot stronger on online marketplaces. So people are coming onto these platforms with a stronger intent to buy, as opposed to finding it on Google or as opposed to finding it on social media. So the buyer intent is also quite key. And then naturally, in regards to scale, you're able to target audiences from Europe and abroad based on what you intend to do in regards to shipping abroad. So you have opportunities to open up international clientele a lot easier than you could perhaps independently. So they provide much easily scalable opportunities to grow abroad. And then, as mentioned before, there is a huge element of trust, much more so with some of the marketplaces than individual brands. And then thereafter, in context to, let's say, Amazon, where you're able to utilize the fulfillment services, which can save a lot of time in regards to helping businesses scale their operations. And then thereafter, there are fulfillment companies also that work with the likes of Amazon, eBay, and larger marketplaces that can handle your inventory, manage your operations for you, because they work in tandem with these different platforms. So some of the cons, they can charge fees which can be will be higher than businesses selling independently, because they are aware that they are providing businesses a bigger platform by being in their ecosystem. So therefore, they will charge higher fees. And then also in regards to some of the restrictions, some of the terms and conditions, they want to be very strict where possible, because naturally they are providing businesses a platform to sell under. So therefore, if the customer in the end is having a negative experience, then it makes an Amazon or eBay or an Etsy also look bad. So there are more restrictive terms and conditions, but that can be a plus and a negative. Negative in a sense that it can create unfair situations sometimes for sellers, but at the same time, I think it can be a positive also, because it instills best practice. So it really depends on what's right for the businesses in regards to those T's and C's. But again, naturally, one has to be comfortable that those T's and C's are still relevant to the sellers and they can abide by them. Otherwise, it will create a negative experience for the customer's viewpoint, and then the marketplaces can and hold the right to delist your items if the sellers are not abiding by their T's and C's. And then also, it can be a little bit tricky in regards to having your branding heavily present across these platforms. Naturally, they want to maintain their own branding as much as possible. So in regards to having a lot of control on how your brand/product is being pushed and perceived, it is limited, because they still want their branding to be the most prevalent. because you are using the platform. So that's something that can be a little bit off-putting at times, but as you scale, you unlock more options where you can have more branding opportunities. And then also thereafter, there's plenty of ads one can run as well to have more brand exposure in these marketplaces. So the next one we want to look at is social selling. So social selling is not necessarily social media marketing or advertising. It's more so focused on building direct engagement with some of the posts that one does, which are a lot more relatable in regards to some of the problems that the product is solving, as opposed to a direct sell. And then also one can utilize connecting with different communities, connecting with different areas of the audience by themselves as a brand and following them, and not directly selling, but focusing on how and why the problems that the brand is solving is relevant and contextual to the potential buyer or the community. But the focus is more so about the problems that we're solving as opposed to directly selling. So there is that distinction. So that allows us to really create a different type of relationship with a potential buyer, with the potential community, to show that we're more than just about selling a product. We're focused on solving different types of problems through our product and our values. So that's something that is quite easily caught out, let's say, because buyers are more and more conscious as to not necessarily wanting to be sold to all the time. They do want to connect with brands. They do want to connect with the values of a brand. They do want to connect also with founders and their personality, and seeing where there's aspirational content or certain feelings that they can associate with certain brands. And that can be another area where social selling is getting more and more traction with the rise of a lot of entrepreneurs and founders looking to build their brand more so online. So they're a bit more human to the potential buyers. And that relationship is more so about the values of the brand as opposed to just a direct sell. And then so building that relationship with your audience can reap great rewards as the times come. And ultimately, it's about having a long-lasting relationship for your brand with your potential consumers and your community. And then the more they like the brand, the more likely they are to invest their time, energy, money in terms of spending on your products. So moving on next, so e-commerce and social media. So naturally, I think we've all seen the rise of influencers, the rise of massive amounts of social media marketing, and brands contextually looking to find ways to be able to still sell without selling too hard. So that's where what we just spoke about in regards to social selling is really striking a fine balance. So with the social selling element is being more approachable, more value-led, problem-solving led, but thereafter, further down the line, if the consumer does want to engage with purchasing said product, how do we make it a bit simpler without them needing to be sold to too aggressively, without them needing to also leave the platform? So now more and more, the likes of Facebook, Instagram, they have been coming up with new ways where you can make purchases within the platform itself without needing the consumer to, or the potential buyer to leave platform. So that's something that has been growing quite a lot extensively, more so in lockdown, where we've been stuck to our phones, stuck to our devices, and constantly on social media. And that's presented another opportunity for brands to be able to then, when the time is right, be able to allow people to purchase their items. And then thereafter, with some of the stats that we've gathered, UK customers are not as opposed to buying on these platforms, should the pitch be right, should the interaction seem organic. So they are seemingly okay with being sold to via social media. And that's something that we've seen a huge a huge rise in regards to businesses adapting further, where they can make allow purchases to be made via social media. So there's apps like Linktree, for example, where you can connect your social media account with a native app, which allows you to pretty much have a mini store within your social media profiles, whereby the consumer does not need to leave the app or the platform, and then they can see a few 2 to 4 or a limited amount of products is recommended, as to kind of seize on without them getting distracted too much. So it's recommended to have a mini store as opposed to a whole plethora of products. And then therefore, if they are looking for more products once they've engaged within your mini store, then they can then be redirected to your website or your Amazon or eBay or other Etsy store and so on. So that's something that has got a huge potential as to interacting with our audience through social selling, as well as through embedded mini stores within our social media accounts, and allowing the consumer to really control how they want to engage with your brand, but for sellers to create a very native, organic feel to it. That would be really. And then you can see in terms of e-commerce and social media on Instagram, we've got different types of ways to purchase products. So they can be linked directly to the image. Once somebody clicks the image, they'll then be within the platform seeing the product that they want to purchase, and then they can more or less be able to purchase it within the platform. So that's something which is anticipated to grow quite a lot. Can be a little bit scary in terms of consumers constantly buying new things, but that's ultimately the decision. But ultimately for the buyers, the sellers, the key is utilizing these platforms to create opportunities where they can sell products which seem organic in terms of the user journey and not too aggressive and too forced on, because once people feel that it's an aggressive push, then there's a huge chance they're likely to disengage. So the way it's very different on social media versus your Amazons and eBays of the world is the buyer intent. When someone's coming on Amazon, when someone's coming on eBay, they've got a strong intent to buy. When they're coming on social media, they want to kind of feel what the brand is about, what kind of images, what kind of designs are there, what kind of content is there. So there's a desire for the content to really be quite engaging. And off the back of that content being engaging, then perhaps there's an opportunity for someone to be interested further to make a sale. So the way you're communicating a brand across social media, across the e-commerce marketplaces was quite different. So it's really important to be conscious of that, because the buyers, the consumers, the viewers, the kind of intent, the emotional state of those two different platforms where audiences are coming on is quite different. And then thereafter, there is B2B commerce. So essentially business to business e-commerce. And that's where over the past, let's say 2 years more so, or let's say post-pandemic, there's been a huge shift, because ultimately a lot of these types of transactions would be done in person. Our company is going to different shops to make different purchases in bulk with their vans and so on. But due to the restrictions of the pandemic, that naturally also created a huge problem for B2B Commerce. So therefore, a lot of companies have been investing a lot in their platforms online. So business to business, e-commerce can still thrive. So some of the usual suspects, Alibaba.com, which is quite prevalent and important in the e-commerce space, which is a huge conglomerate. Some of you guys might know Alibaba, but their B2B commerce platform is one of the most respected in the world, and they're trading with over 100 countries globally, and that's continuously growing. And a lot of sellers, especially on Amazon, eBay, would tend to purchase items from bulk from an Alibaba, for example, to import to the UK, to import to Europe, and then thereafter sell it in the UK. And the other examples you can look at, let's say Bestway, which is a huge name in the cash and carry business, where they naturally, the previous kind of trajectory was you'll go to a cash and carry, you'll buy your products in bulk, you'll drive back to your off license or to your grocery store. But then again, that was still happening, but there was limitations with stock, there was limitations with product, there were restrictions on how much one can buy. So a lot of these companies then also adapted their online presence more so, therefore allowing retailers to not necessarily always waste their time going to one site where they can kind of be able to plug in products from different sites of a Bestway. So that way, Bestway was able to really diversify how many customers it can serve, also save businesses a ton of time by giving them a wider choice of stores that they can access goods from all online. That's something that naturally was a great move by Bestway. And then that's a trend also that is continually going to be growing, because it is convenient. And then buyers, especially in that space, which might not be as tech savvy, have had to adapt and have seen the time that they saved and some of the costs that are perhaps also being saved to better utilize their time and their spend. So over time, the B2B commerce has increased efficiency, reduced overhead costs, and it's creating more of a diverse ecosystem where there is more opportunity, more than before, based on how the world has changed, especially because of COVID, as we all know. So that's another area which is on track to be growing quite a lot. So things like purchase frequency, pricing are different when it comes to B2B versus B2C e-commerce. The decision makers that one would be speaking with is a different type of conversation with in comparison to B2C. And then the payment times, at times it can be on credit, at times it can be X% first, X% after. So there is a distinction between B2B and B2C, but more so it's a different type of buyer and a different type of audience, but nonetheless an area which is also on track to grow quite a lot over the coming years. So it is one of the fastest growing sectors of e-commerce. It simplifies the shopper experience. It's allowing buyers to decide to make a purchase independently, having surveyed a lot of different options online without needing to drive to different depots, drive to different shops as they would be doing previously. And then that's an area where there's still, an untapped opportunity perhaps for another kind of business model, who knows? But there is a huge opportunity, especially in this space as well. And it's not directly comparable in terms of B2B to B2C, but the concept is not too dissimilar in terms of trying to be able to sell product online. Of course, with B2B, there will be an element of bulk purchase, more so than on B2C. The terms are going to be a bit different, but it's something in regards to creating a great user experience, delivering information that's succinct, easy to understand, digest, and those kind of concepts are still going to be very similar in terms of B2B versus B2C. And then finally, some tips for success on the B2B commerce side is keeping things user-friendly. And then more so what's really important, I suppose, not just for B2B and also for B2C, is keeping your web presence mobile-friendly, because naturally a lot of us nowadays are making a lot more purchases on our phones as opposed to computers. And I think on average, in terms of traffic breakdown, around 46 to 54% of people will make purchases via their phones as opposed to a computer. So that's something that is really important to stay conscious of. And then also what really helps, I think a lot of us when we're viewing products online, is we have a keen eye on reviews. So naturally creating an ecosystem for B2B and B2C where you're encouraging your customers to leave reviews where possible, that is going to be of great value to encourage other future buyers when it comes to other people that have left positive reviews when it comes to purchasing your products. And then, especially in the B2B space, offering discounts for bulk purchases, subscription services allows someone to really invest a bit more so in your product offering, perhaps at the stake of a discount. And then if that experience goes well, they're much more likely to come back and at least match it or perhaps increase it in terms of their purchase size. So that allows you to really create a higher ticket value, essentially, scenario with your buyers. So it's important to assess that effectively. And then emails are still pretty important. I think a lot of us still rely on emails to get aspects of information when it comes to trusted resources, whether that's through a WhatsApp, through an email, a text message. So that's another area which is really important to maintain that touch point with your customer, not to spam them, of course, because a lot of us hate being spammed, but sharing content which is relevant to the buyer, values that you believe in, content that you feel could be insightful, interesting for your audience. It's best practice to share. And then also limited time offers at the right times of the year to encourage higher footfall. And especially if there's stock that needs to be cleared, then it's an easier way to perhaps target sellers. And another thing on B2B is I've seen a rise in WhatsApp selling. So a lot of people would be building up a list of retailers and buyers on WhatsApp, having large groups. So that's something that I've seen more so through COVID than before. So that perhaps could be another area based on how comfortable you are using WhatsApp for business, how comfortable your buyers might be in terms of engaging on WhatsApp. So that's perhaps another area of interest. And then goes without saying, a loyalty or reward program is always a good thing to have because it gives your buyers potential to work their way up to larger discounts work their way up to getting rewards and feeling appreciated for some of the money that they've invested in your business. So it's good to have those reward schemes, those loyalty schemes to encourage them to keep spending more, but also to kind of really showcase that your brand is about giving back also, not just the product, but also a feeling, a value in inviting them in your community. And finally, a few other things. It's the abandoned cart. So online, we're able to get the data where if, especially if they've logged in and they get to the purchase cycle and they've decided to leave that page. So if they are a part of your ecosystem, i.e. already someone who's registered your platform, you can do so through the online marketplaces like Amazon and eBay, a little bit different, but if you're owning that, your website and your platform, then you can easily set up automations where based on the platform that you use, if you're using Shopify, BigCommerce, WooCommerce, or an independent website developer, they can set up parameters whereby if somebody has gone on to make a purchase, they've decided to leave, they will be fired an email within a day, within 24 hours, sorry, within 6 hours, or whichever parameter you want to set as a reminder to further engage with them. And then finally, it's important to figure out what works for yourself, figure out what works, sorry, for your customers, and then utilizing that as a means to building future campaigns, future patterns to test, and future things to implement when it comes to marketing. I think that the key is to really be quite adaptive when it comes to these new ecosystems, really utilize data where possible to find a mechanism to test different hypotheses. And then thereafter, once you're testing out these different hypotheses, that allows you to then understand what is and isn't working based on the data that you collect after. So it's key to really be quite, adaptive to your strategies, being quite focused on the analytics as well, because that will tell you what the customers directly want. And that can be very powerful and useful information when it comes to creating an ecosystem of evolution of how your brand is perceived, what kind of products are the best ones to offer, what kind of pricing strategies to deploy, and being quite in tune with what the data is telling you. And that's something I would encourage every couple of months, at least every month, ideally, to review the data. But that's naturally dependent on time. But I think if that data is going to help us create a more successful business model or more successful environment to better understand our customers, then it's time well spent. Great. So before we go into the Q&A, so on our site, since we partner with London Borough of Hammersmith and Fulham, we give away a 1-month free trial of Awesome bookkeeping and accounting services. So that's applicable to everyone attending, registered with Hammersmith and Fulham Council. So feel free to reach out to us, and we're happy to provide our services the first month on the house for free. Cool. And then finally, time for a Q&A. Cool. If there's any questions, guys, please feel free to fire it my way. Any comments as well? So I think there were a few things that were mentioned in regards to the polls. So if anybody had any other comments, any other questions, you can just reach out to us directly. We're happy to constitute and help wherever possible. And then on our side, the goal for us is to create an ecosystem where through our community, we also work with a lot of e-commerce influencers. We work with a lot of e-commerce companies. The goal is to create an ecosystem where our community is able to really help businesses grow in whichever direction they deem suitable, and with a huge emphasis on the e-commerce space. Okay, one last thing to add then. At the end of this event, we'll be sending over the presentation that we've just shared. Hopefully that will be of value, and anything else you may need to ask us in regards to e-commerce or bookkeeping and accounting, feel free to just reach out to us, and we'll be happy to help. Thanks a lot for everyone who joined. It's been a pleasure to spend some time with you guys, and wishing everyone a great day ahead.